very big if. Simply because even before Galwan, I don't think China and India could trust each other. Definitely India could not trust China. Because China has already shown itself that it's not a rule-based society, or rather a rule-based government. It displayed its arrogance in the South China Sea. We saw what happened with the decision of the International Court of Justice, and there was never any implementation on that. Going by your own rules and creating islands in the South China Sea, and then claiming exclusive economic zones around it just to make an extra buck for your country. I mean, this shows what the nation is all about. We, that way, comparatively, are a benign, much more rule-bound nation, society. There may be an odd person here and there who breaks rules, which happens in every country. But culturally, we are a rule-based society. And that is one of the prime reasons, because there's difference of cultures between the two countries. Cannot allow India at least to trust China. And that's why after Galwan, and even before Galwan, if you saw on the 6th of June when the Corps commanders met, people thought that the Corps commanders have met for 6 hours, 8 hours, and obviously there's going to be a disengagement, and everyone was celebrating. But I think any military observer would have known that this kind of a thing takes a tremendous amount of give and take. And the Chinese are not going to move back without at least trying to achieve their military and political aim partially. All this is based on assessments at the moment. There is nothing which is definite about it. There's nothing which is confirmed about it. American intelligence, yes, for high order, has picked up bits and pieces here and there. And intelligence is all about picking up straws in the wind and joining them together. Now, we should basically assess it from the angle of what would the Chinese actually achieve by physically coercing at a single point on the LAC. Since 1975, the record had been 45 years. There had been no bloodshed, and not a shot had been fired. But yes, of late in the last 2 years, there had been some exchanges of blows and some stone throwing at each other, and the Chinese probably thought that this is within the ambit of tolerance. But the sudden decision to try and do something in a very awkward way, trying to coerce the Indians to come in and then actually take action to take lives, to think that the Indians would not respond would mean a completely incorrect interpretation of the situation on the ground. Which soldier would not do it? And if the Chinese have not read Indian military history, and if they do not know that even in a place like Chushul, where 130 Kumaoni soldiers laid down their lives together with their officer Major Shaitan Singh Paramveer Chakra, how could you not imagine that the same thing would happen here? So I do not believe that this was a deliberate act. A lot of people disagree with me. I thought that this was something which just went a little too far. And momentarily, because the very next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, the Chinese commander came back immediately to try and contact the Indian side, to try and regain order and control, because he knew lives had been lost and that the entire situation could go completely out of hand, out of control on the line of action control, which was not the intention I think the Chinese were wanting to see. So that is the way I look at it. Although it will take a fair amount of time before anything definitive emerges on this. And as events unfold from now onwards even, perhaps these inputs will give us greater indications of what lay behind the psyche of the Chinese in doing what they did. See, my immediate answer is chalk and cheese. I mean, in the sense, And in 62, we were just unprepared. We were a very experienced army with a very experienced set of officers who had fought the Second World War and fought the war in 1947-48 in Jammu and Kashmir. But despite all that, we didn't have the wherewithal. We didn't perhaps have the political direction, the political ownership of what was happening at that time. So today is diametrically opposite. Let's start from, this kind of a thing can always be seen from different dimensions, from different domains, if I may say. Politically, you see, full ownership taken by the Prime Minister through his visit to Ladakh. Then comes the Raksha Mantri, who only completed his visit 2 days ago. He goes on a visit to Leh, goes from there to Lukung, comes back from there and goes to Sri Amarnath Ji Shrine, and then goes from there to the LOC post in Kashmir. That is the kind of commitment shown by our political leadership and authority. And then, of course, we may have been tardy in preparing the army from the equipment angle, or the desired equipment angle, because of low allocations of budget and things like that. But immediately amends have been made. And I say the past, whatever it is, just forget it. Immediately amends have been made and a fair amount of allocations have been done. Obviously, it takes time to build up your capability. But let's be very clear, the Indian Army is not what it was. It is well trained, it is well equipped, and as far as high altitude warfare is concerned, I don't think there's an army in the world which can compare itself to this. So, if China engages India in a border war, the manner in which it did in 1962, I don't think the result can be anything like 1962. In fact, China may have surprised us by attempting to do coercion on the line of actual control, and it may end up getting surprised itself. But if it came to general war, which is very unlikely, where a declared war beyond the borders extends into the maritime zone in the Indian Ocean and things like that, the outcome can be anything based upon how the international situation pans out, what the international alliances are going to do, how different groupings are going to come together, and this has all the propensity for something much bigger than just a Sino-Indian affair. Interestingly, let's look at Nepal first. And I think Nepal has been used by China as a pinprick, primarily as a political diversion. India feels, the Indian leadership will feel, the Indian public will feel that a small nation with which India has had the most outstanding relationship, virtually transformational relationship with them, how could Nepal suddenly become different? Even if we have had some minor differences in the last few years, how would Nepal suddenly turn a completely different direction? With that, China would hope that it would send a very negative signal to India that there's a possibility the same thing will be repeated with other neighbors, other countries, need not be named. So that was the intent, and I think that is about all which has been achieved. India has not in any way done anything negative or said anything negative about Nepal. We are fully aware that Nepal is ruled by a Maoist government at the moment, a prime minister who himself is entirely under pressure internally, and everything could change there. It's just a matter of time. You have to have the stamina to stick it out. But Pakistan is something different. And Pakistan probably views this from the angle that perhaps India's recent utterances on Gilgit-Baltistan, on Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, had worried them to no end. It knew that India had the capability and the political will, this government, the new army, the army in its current form, could all do what it was talking about. It was also sending awkward messages to China, perhaps, to the extent that China thought that this is really the demonstration of the new emerging strategic confidence of India. So therefore, this actually brings about a situation in which Pakistan and China can ideally collude with each other. And Ladakh is the ideal ground to do it, because that's where the physical distances between the two are not too much, and they can have virtually common objectives. They can even look at such military and political objectives as the capture of certain territory, which will give them the capability to open alternative arteries of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, pressurize India in no uncertain way. So this is, and by that, probably Pakistan will secure itself to a much greater extent. I think Pakistan is making a serious mistake on this. Although India has not very seriously analyzed a two-front capability and the possibility of a two-front emerging with China and Pakistan both. But yet, if push comes to shove, India has the capability in a border war to fight with both. The situation is at the moment in a hang, primarily because China is playing for time. It is looking at the international environment and waiting to see what does the post-COVID-19 world emerge as. The so-called New World Order, the very challenging New World Order. Obviously, the New World Order does not emerge in a matter of 1 or 2 months. But the indicators of that will be there should the post-COVID-19 situation start emerging around about October, November or so. That's the time frame perhaps which China is looking at. If it extends this standoff, obviously it is with an intent to cause economic harm to India, because it's going to be an expensive affair for us to maintain that many troops. The strength of troops in those areas is going to be a fairly big nightmare as far as the operational logistics are concerned, although China itself will also equally be affected. I think India should similarly continue to maintain a stance at the moment until China withdraws the depth forces. Disengagements of 1 and 2 kilometers on the line of actual control or creation of buffer zones for patrolling, etc., do not really translate into peace, because these are temporary issues, these are temporary situations which can go afire by a single trigger anywhere. So we have to wait for the depth forces, which are there 70-80 kilometers in depth. When they start stepping back and they start moving out from that region completely, it's only then that we can think that the situation is stabilizing. So I would say the first thing, India needs military stamina. It needs political will, which it has demonstrated amply, and which should continue to display it in the same manner. It needs international partnerships, and that the first signals of it came immediately after the Prime Minister visited Ladakh, and I think there have been very positive indicators which have come from different directions. India should play on that and continue working diplomatically on it. And at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong in ensuring that all communications with China are open. Military, political, diplomatic. Because no one wants war. All we're looking for is ultimately a situation which stabilizes Ladakh or the complete Himalayan front.